we also have breaking news, trending news with Erik Prince happening right now, the former Blackwater CEO head. And now it's not called Blackwater. Now it's called something else. Jason, do you want to fill us in on what's the latest information with Erik Prince?
Yeah, actually, Luke, the crazy thing about this is that it's not really breaking news. It took a couple days for people to sift through this. Al Jazeera does this sit down, this 49, 50-minute sit down with a largely Arab audience. And an Arab, I don't know much about this guy, but Mahdi Hassan, I'm probably butchering your name and I'm very sorry. But boy, I watched just little pieces of it. When I first saw it, he basically was pressing Prince on how he thought about the people he was so-called liberating. Blackwater was there alongside the United States of America, Luke, and the coalition, and they were here to liberate those Iraqis. And he pulled up an excerpt where Prince basically said, he often thought to himself, why are we wasting our times liberating these barbarians? And, Prince tried to slip out of the comment. You guys can watch the full thing. The full thing is out there on Al Jazeera, and then there's bits and pieces. And he said, well, I was kind of talking about the terrorists and that element and yada, yada, yada. He doesn't care about the terrorists, folks. He cares about the almighty dollar. This is a guy who was brought up through the U.S. military-industrial complex and then backed to have the #1 mercenary group during the War on Terror when we were all in color-coded hell. When they would tell you what level we were at. We're at orange. We better back up, Luke. We were at orange, and the terror threat is real, and Al-Qaeda is around the corner. And then they had such a bad reputation. Such a bad reputation, they had to change their name to many a thing. XE Services. What was the last one? I forget. It wasn't XE Services, but they changed it. And now they're bringing the Blackwater name back. They're bringing the brand back. And while he was bringing the brand back, he was meeting with Donald Trump. And that's a real deal thing, guys. He's meeting with Trump, and what's he doing with Trump? Well, he's trying to sell privatized military in the Middle East because Trump promised his base, you and me, that we'd be getting out of Syria. We'd be getting out of Afghanistan. We'd be getting out of Iraq. Hasn't happened yet. But it feels more and more like he was trying to transition those things. It wasn't just about getting out, but transition into PMGs or private military groups. So, the headlines today are that he set up a meeting in Trump Tower with these power players. Now, they're going to play Russia! Russia collusion! You lied! You lied to Congress, Erik Prince. But really the more interesting thing to me, because you'd have to be naive if you don't understand that Prince is not a good person, that Donald Trump is dealing with not good people, and that the military-industrial complex is going to have their way one way or another, that one of the guys he's dealing with, and props to Hassan for saying this, Luke, was a known pedophile. He brings it up. He brings up the aspect that one of these power players that Trump's meeting with, those should be the headlines. No, they're not. It's Erik Prince lied to Congress. Because they're not really worried about Russia. They're saying, hey, let's get him on a perjury charge and let's see if he'll roll on Trump or one of his associates so they'll roll on Trump. Because I truly believe, Luke, this isn't ending. They don't have anything, and they are trying to forego the process of the Mueller investigation coming to a close. That's how I feel about it. What do you think?
I think that's not far from the imagination. That's not a stretch there at all, especially with the way things are going and everyone saying, "Hey, you're not going to get any Russian collusion charges here." And again, we've been saying that from the very onset, even before there was an investigation. As soon as Donald Trump was elected president, we heard this talk, which was mainly an attack against alternative media, independent media, and of course, people on social media who got Donald Trump elected with, of course, information that they couldn't get on the mainstream media that, of course, many people don't trust, and they still don't trust. Important elements to understand here with Blackwater. he's behind, Erik Prince is behind one of the largest kind of private military contractors out there that are immune from law. They have been becoming more of an integral, important part of U.S. military operations. And again, it doesn't surprise me that Erik Prince is playing such a prominent role, since there's many reports of him even attending Bilderberg, the secretive, elusive meeting of many top world heads. And it only makes sense, especially with the way Trump has been acting recently, stopping the reporting of drone strikes that kill innocent civilians from the public knowing, from even that being reported and seen by the general public. And now it only makes sense that a lot of the people are going to be replaced by these contractors. And this does seem like a great kind of distraction against this Russian collusion, which again doesn't exist. Geopolitically, look at the greater picture. Donald Trump sold lethal weapons to Ukraine, something Barack Obama was too afraid to do because he knew it would anger the Russians. Geopolitically, look at the larger picture unfolding with Iran, with Syria, with Israel. Russia is pissed. Russia's not happy. Russia's even talking about new weapons that they are building to combat and directly go against the United States, which they say and see as a threat. That's the bigger issue here that, of course, a lot of people don't want to conveniently talk about because they're still living in this Russian paranoia delusion that makes no sense at all.
Well, Luke,
that's my take on it. Yeah.
Well, I just before we get into full takes, I just want to say how this really comes into the play of how we're not ever leaving Syria. Okay, we've been hearing about how, hey, we gotta go. We got to go. They're almost gone. When Russia first got involved, they took out a huge number of ISIS fighters, right? Well, now, the latest spin here, Luke, the Daily Mail and others are reporting, there's thousands of ISIS people. The caliphate is real. We didn't know where they were. They're underground. I'm not even kidding you. Look at this. Look at this headline. There will be blood.
What are they, ants?
Yes, and just the propaganda that they're trying to say there are thousands of underground ISIS fighters in these encampments is ridiculous. Tens of thousands of dust-covered women, children, and men have been streamed out of the ragged tent encampment. Now that's real, but then they start saying that there's this whole caliphate that nobody knew about. Dude, I don't know what to say. I would just want out of these wars. We need to get out.
Yeah, unrepentant, unbroken, and radicalized is what the U.S. Central Command is warning them. And people need to understand a lot of these U.S. interventions create more terrorism. It's the theory of blowback. It's an official theory that people like Stateman, Ron Paul, officially talked about and were criticized, but makes perfect sense when you look at what's happening here. Because again, when you just come into a territory, bomb people, sometimes innocent civilians, the impact of those innocent civilians being killed is people being radicalized and joining radical elements. We talked about this and documented how this is happening directly in Somalia, where during a failed U.S. raid, innocent people were killed. One of the family members that we talked to that lost over a dozen members of his family talked about how a lot of his kids, a lot of his other family members, he has to stop from joining Al-Shabaab in Somalia because of their search for vengeance after their moms, their aunts, their cousins were murdered by a raid that was done for the wrong purposes or was illegal, and the U.S. tried to cover up because innocent civilians were killed. And then it's a rinse, repeat, copy, and we interviewed a poor guy, lost a lot of his family members, and his main mission is, hey, stop joining the other side. The other side is just as bad. And that was one of his main missions. And talking to that guy, changed my perspective on a lot of these bigger issues. And people need to understand we're only making it worse with our intervention. And people could say, no, we need to finish the job. No, we need to. But we've been saying that for years and decades. And it's always a pack of lies. And the job is never going to be done when the job is creating more of that problem. The war on terrorism creates more terrorism. The war on drugs creates more drugs. Anything that the government declares war on multiplies and expands because it's a business operation that is meant for profit, not to do the morally right thing, because that's not what governments do. That's not what gangs do. That's not what power structures do. And that's why there should be no government, Jason.